Hey folks, welcome to a new episode of the Preparedness Podcast. That's right, I did say new. I'm Rob Hennis, the host for the Preparedness Podcast, and I'm back with a new series for the Preparedness Podcast. This is going to be an ongoing series, but before we get into this, I want to explain kind of where I've been and what happened. There are two basic reasons why I stopped doing the podcasts, and they're related to each other. The first reason is I didn't have the time that I wanted to take, that I needed to take in order to create the podcast and make them as good as I want it to be. In order to make a decent podcast, I need to spend time creating basically a syllabus of what I'm going to be talking about. And this allows me to not forget the things that I want to cover. So initially at the beginning, I figured that the podcast would be kind of up and down until I got kind of a hang of it. But I wanted to produce a certain level of quality, and I just felt that I wasn't there, especially since the only time I really had to do the podcast was basically in my truck on my way to or from work. And while I sort of kind of like the diesel background, it kind of fills the background a little bit, and I know some of the listeners like that as well. I also know some didn't. But regardless of that, doing a podcast on the road isn't really what I want to do. It's not long enough. I felt that the quality wasn't there. I can't refer to my notes, so everything is off the top of my head, which makes me put out less information because I'm afraid to say the wrong thing. I don't want to give out bad information. And because of that, I didn't think I was contributing much to the preparedness community. You know, this is a medium which I wanted to help people. I wanted to get the information out as far as helping people get prepared, helping them to understand kind of what to do, what not to do, so they didn't make the same mistakes I did, so they didn't waste the amount of money I did in trying to get prepared and making, mistakes and errors and stuff. And so I felt because I wasn't doing that, and I didn't have the time to make them good, I just decided to stop. And I didn't really intend to put out any more. Well, since then, a few things have happened. I've had a lot of people email me in this space of almost a year now, a lot of listeners who have written to me and said, gee, we really wish you would put out another podcast or do the podcast again. And they would relate to me how much the podcast meant to them as far as what they got out of it, how much they enjoyed it, stuff like that. And it really started me thinking that you know what, I was actually accomplishing the goal that I set out to do, which was to help people. That meant a lot to me. And so I decided that, okay, I want to do it again, and I'm going to put better effort into it. Back about a year ago and so, I was working some side jobs, some contract work, trying to make some ends meet and stuff, and that was what took up a lot of my time. This time around, I'm really restructuring things so that I can take more time to put these out. In fact, I was talking to my wife, and a lot of the stuff that I want to do with the podcast, I'm going to need her help as far as, updating websites and contacting advertisers and stuff like that. Because what I want to do is I want to put out the best material that I can do. But, I realize that it takes time. I've decided that, I'm not going to do it in the truck anymore, that I'm going to do it in my home office, and I'm going to record on a better quality microphone so that the quality is there. And then because I'm nervous about talking to a large number of people, there will be post-production required to clean up the podcast a bit, because I do realize I say a lot. But that's just how it goes. So I'm trying to, I am taking better time. I'm taking more time. In fact, I've already spent probably, 20 hours or so putting together the syllabus for this new series of Preparedness podcasts. And that leads us to where do we go from here? what is in store for the Preparedness Podcast going forward. I have completely revamped the podcast. I'm putting more time into each show. I'm going to be writing a syllabus for each show, and I've already been doing that. I currently have, I think it's the first 3 months or the first 12 shows are already planned out. And the reason I do this is because I want to make sure that I'm covering all the topics in a somewhat structured order, so that if the topic I talk about today will be relevant with something else, I would like to cover that other topic reasonably soon. I don't want to wait a year and say, oh yeah, way back when I talked about this, I said this. I'd like to keep them somewhat structured and somewhat grouped together. My goal with this new series of podcasts is to try and structure them so that every podcast is giving out good, solid information that you can use. I'm also going to be trying to identify a specific goal that you can work on for that particular week. These goals will be solid, usable items that you can use to increase your preps. In some cases, you may already have done these things, and if that's the case, this is a good time for you to go over those preparations you've made to make sure that everything is valid and current, and if it, nothing's expired, or perhaps you put it together a long time ago, and since then you've learned more, so it needs to be done. Because preparedness is an ongoing thing. It's a lifestyle. You don't just set it up once and it's done. You constantly have to revisit things. And if we do these in small, short chunks, we can accomplish a lot without actually having to take up too much of our everyday life, which I think is important because we don't want to get burdened down with doing this every day. I have a podcast coming up that is going to be about what I would do different if I started now in my preparedness. And I know I covered this back when I was doing podcasts in the truck, but I that was just off the cuff, and I don't even remember what I said because I typically don't go back and listen to my podcasts. So this time what I did is I actually wrote it all down to make sure that these are the points I want to cover. But one of the things I cover is basically I go through these ups and downs periods where I sometimes do panic buying, and sometimes I get kind of bored with the whole thing, and that's not really good. And I know what causes it. It's basically me being too involved in preparedness all the time, and you kind of get burnt out. So I think it's very important that we don't do this all the time. I think you're likely to get burned out, especially if you're a new prepper. New preppers don't know if they're going to be doing this for any length of time, and if you get the first time you get burnt out may be the only time you get burnt out because you never go back to keeping up with your preparations. I haven't really decided on what the length of the podcast is going to be. I've kind of flip-flopped back and forth between either trying to do a 45-minute podcast, and then sometimes I think, well, maybe I'll do like a 20 or 30-minute podcast and do a couple a week. I'm not really sure. I haven't decided. What will probably happen is I will most likely try a little bit of both. I might try one podcast at 45 to 60 minutes, somewhere in there, or I might try several podcasts at about 20 to 30 minutes each. I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure what's going to work yet. I know a lot of you like to listen to and from your commute to work, and I understand that because that's how I listen to a lot of my podcasts. I also think shorter podcasts, 2 or 3 times a week, would be easier to consume as far as you having time to listen to them. Part of the problem with that is it's difficult to convey information in short little nuggets. So I'm not sure how it's going to work. We're going to have to work with it and see how it works. So also, we are looking for sponsors and advertisers for this podcast. If you listen to this podcast and would like to sponsor it or advertise on it, or if you know somebody who would like to sponsor or advertise on the Preparedness Podcast, please contact us at advertising@prepcast.info. This is something that we're going to have to do in order to make this a long-term thing. I've kind of resisted this for a while, and this is kind of one of the reasons that I wasn't able to take the time that I wanted to do, is because that I didn't run it like a business. And so that's another one of the changes, that we're going to be running this like a business. My wife is going to be helping me with this stuff, and so this is going to help produce better podcasts and get better information out to you, the listener. Starting with the very first podcast, I've always said that two of the main tenets of the Preparedness podcast, and these are very true today, is that I'm only going to talk about things that I know about or have experience with, and do your own research, which is probably should be the mantra or the tagline for the podcast. Do your own research. It's very important that you understand your limits and your level of knowledge, and you do your own research. Make sure you know what you're getting into. Okay, so as I mentioned, the topic of this podcast is going to be home escape bags. But before we get into that, I want to tell you about our first sponsor. As the listeners of this podcast know, I'm a firm believer of owning gold and silver. Owning precious metals is one of the very few ways that you can protect the value of your savings. Inflation continues to eat the value of the U.S. dollar, and if we get into a hyperinflationary economy, the dollar is going to totally collapse. As you probably noticed, we haven't recovered from the recession, and we're still facing a major collapse of the economy. Don't put this off any longer. If you want to preserve the wealth of your savings, you need to have some gold and silver in your possession. I've known Jeff Bennett at FlyingEagleGold.com ever since I came to Arizona 15 years ago. One of the things that have always impressed me about Jeff is that his prices are very low while still providing a very high-quality product. He's one of the most knowledgeable people I know on gold and silver. I honestly believe that if you don't own some precious metal, your preparations for an economic disaster are incomplete. If you've been considering buying some gold and silver, give Jeff a call at 623-327-1778, 623-327-1778, or email him at info@flyingeaglegold.com. If you're driving and can't write this down, just go to the Preparedness Podcast website and click on the FlyingEagleGold.com banner. Okay, so let's get on with the podcast and get to the first topic that I wanted to cover in this new series. I think this is going to be a good example of what you expect from the new series of the Preparedness Podcast. This first episode of the new series is about the home escape bag. The home escape bag is the bag you have near your bedside, so that if you have to escape a fire or other calamities, say, I suppose if you're an earthquake and you can get out fast enough. But primarily, this is something going to be used for a fire. If you wake up in the middle of the night, smell smoke, your house is on fire, you have to get everybody out, this is the bag you should grab. And you shouldn't have to worry about anything else. Now, you're going to lose just about everything in your house. It's very difficult to go through and put out a fire with fire extinguishers. So you're not going to have a whole lot of time. Fire extinguishers can buy you time. It can help you keep safe while you're trying to get out and stuff. But the sad truth is that fire extinguishers, unless you catch the fire very small, typically won't stop the fire. So the way it usually happens is you wake up and suddenly, you realize the house is on fire and you have to escape. The home escape bag is what you can grab very quickly and will have a minimal supply of the things you're going to need immediately after the fire. And you should have one for every member of your family or whoever's in the home. And they should include stuff like clothes or sweats, just something that you can put on, especially if you like to sleep in your birthday suit or your skivvies or underwear or whatever. Have something to put on other than just a robe or whatever. If you live a area that gets cold at night, which is practically every place in the United States, include a small jacket. Or if you have space, put a small winter coat or something in there that you would be warmer in. But include something so that you're not freezing out there on the sidewalk. Socks and shoes or sandals. An old pair. This is a perfect place to put an old pair of shoes. You're not looking to be fashionable. You're not going to be going to a job interview the next day. This is basically something to put on your feet so you're not walking on rocks and the cold ground or whatever. And it's a great place to put all your old shoes. A flashlight or chem lights. I like chem lights because if there's a gas leak, there won't be any spark in a chem light. You can just snap them and they glow bright enough to be able to escape. If you don't smell a gas leak, then flashlights are probably even better. You're going to want to have a copy of all the important documents, and you're going to have to update this as needed. So if you move houses, you need to put in, the new deed or the mortgage or the bank accounts. If you change banks or if you get a new credit card or whatever, you're going to have to keep this updated. If you're married or are living with a significant other, you should both of your bags should have a copy of all these documents. And these documents include insurance documents like health, auto, home, copies of your Social Security cards, copies of your bank accounts, your credit cards, and your debit cards. You want to have all the information for your account numbers. Maybe if you're going to put passwords so you can get online, make sure those are encrypted if you don't remember those. You want to be able to prove that you own these accounts, so if you need to draw money on them or get replacement cards, you can. Things like marriage licenses, birth and death certificates. A lot of times trying to get a birth certificate is a real pain or it takes a very long period of time. So either have them in your original should be stored in a fire safe someplace, but have a copy in your home escape bag. Any court papers you have as far as you're getting alimony or you've won a court case and you're supposed to be collecting money, or if you have custody papers, stuff like that. You want to have copies of that. One of the things you're going to have to keep updated on a regular basis are the copies of recent pay stubs. This is important, so, especially if you need to get a loan or something. You're going to want to have this. Copies of your cell phone and utility bills, either because you need to pay the bills, sometimes you need to prove residency, and sometimes you're going to stop the service. There's no reason to pay for water and electricity and gas to this residence that burned down because you're not there anymore. You're going to want to know where those are and have the account numbers. Any titles and leases that you have, if you have rental properties or if you're renting the house, you're going to want to have that sort of information. Car titles and vehicle titles and registrations, you're going to want to have that as well. Any school records for you or your children, diplomas, the course records and report cards and stuff like that. You're going to have that. Medical records, any sort of medical records that you have, like shot records for your children. A lot of that stuff you can go ahead and get replaced, but it's just as easy to make a copy of it and keep it in this bag. And of course, an assortment of family pictures. Maybe not all the pictures. Like I've got like 50,000 pictures in my iPhoto. I certainly don't need all of those, but print out, maybe a single portrait of every person and a family shot and some happy moments and stuff. Then once you've compiled all these, and of course anything else you can think of that you need to have for whatever reason, compile these, make a copy, and make a copy for you and make a copy for your spouse or significant other, so that you both have a copy. So in case one of you forget to grab as a bag, at least you should still have one. Then while you're making this copy, and what you can do is you could scan this into your computer and then print that scan for the copy, or just make copies at wherever and then scan this into your computer. But have a digital copy of all these documents. Put them on a flash drive, and you should probably have a flash drive in both yours and your spouse's bag. You could also take one of these flash drives that has information in there and stick it at like a family member's house that's close by. I would probably encrypt it so it doesn't fall into the wrong hands, and that's fairly easy to do. Or you could use a service like Dropbox, a cloud service where you store information up online and you can get it anywhere you basically can access the internet. So, for example, I run Dropbox on both my basically all my computers. But if I lost my main computer, I could go to Dropbox on my iPad or my iPhone or anybody else's computer, log in, and I could get access to those documents. I particularly like that, not with the iPad or any tablet, but basically you have a copy right there. You could even store a copy on your iPad if you wanted to. Other things you should have in the home escape bag is money. You're going to need probably to spend a night in a hotel. Yes, you may have friends and family out there, but it would probably be just as easy to go spend the night in a motel or a hotel where if this happened at 2 a.m., you're going to feel bad and you're going to feel stressed enough, and then to call your friends or family and burden them or feel like you're burdening them, because that's usually what happens is we feel like we're overburdening our friends or family. Don't add to that stress if you don't have to or if you don't want to. It's perfectly fine to go stay in a hotel. You're going to want to have a set of spare keys for both of your bags, you and your spouse, that has your house, your car keys, if you have office keys, if you have storage lockers, if you have a fire safe that has a key that's opened by a key, you're going to want to have copies of that with you. Another thing you need to have in your home escape bag is a contact list of all the people you may want to call or get in contact with. One of the easiest ways of doing this is if you have your contacts in an address book or a contacts app on your computer, just print that out. That's one of the easiest ways to do it. I would also put this in a cloud service or on that flash drive so you have access to it. A lot of times I think you can export them as like an HTML file, which is a web page, and that would allow you to access it from either another computer or like your iPad or iPhone or Android or whatever. That could be pretty helpful too. Any needed medications you have, if you have, medications that you need to take, you probably want to have at least a week's worth in there because it may take a while for you to get a prescription refilled. This is another one of those things that you're going to have to update on a regular basis so that the prescriptions don't expire or you rotate them out and stuff like that. You should probably also consider putting in a small toiletry bag. If you do go to stay with friends or family, or possibly even a neighbor or someplace like that, it'd be very handy to have your own toothbrush and toothpaste and hairbrush and whatever else you need without having to, either go try to find a 24-hour store that has that stuff or hoping that, either the hotel or your friend's place has this stuff for you. Just have it for you. That's the easiest. It doesn't take up a lot of room. You also are going to need spare glasses. If you wear glasses, you should have a spare pair of glasses there. This can be a cheap pair. There are places online for cheap sunglasses and prescription glasses. Do a quick search in your favorite search engine for cheap prescription eyeglasses, and you're going to find a couple places. You don't have to really worry about what they look like. Spend $25, $30, $40 for a pair. And this is a good idea anyways. If you wear glasses, you should have them in several places. I keep a spare pair of eyeglasses in my truck all the time, because if the glasses I have break, which they've broke like 3 times in the last year, I have something I can wear because I need them to drive. Likewise, you should have them in your home escape bag. It's something that you're going to need. Now, you probably have your glasses on your nightstand, but if you forget, this is a good thing to have. I mean, eyeglasses it's really hard to live and work and drive and do things in this world if you can't see. If in addition to money, if you're the sort that still uses checkbooks, or if you have a checkbook, you may want to throw a book of checks in there. Use the last book, that's the highest number series, and when you're just about out of checks, you can order, and when the new checks come in, you can swap them out. This is a personal crisis. This isn't like the end of the world where people may not be accepting credit cards or checks, like an economic crisis or something like that. Everything is still the same except for your house or your home has burned and you lost everything, so you can still use checks. That might be a very good way for you to be able to start rebuilding. Anything else you'd be hard-pressed to be without, and I'm sure there's some things I forgot here, added to this bag. This bag is the bag you grab immediately and take off. This bag doesn't have to be big. A small duffel or a small tote bag is usually sufficient. If you don't have any other place, store it under the bed. Out of the bed is out of the way, and you can't see it and stuff, and so you don't have to worry about putting it away when company comes over or something like that. Under the bed can be dirty and dusty, so a lot of times what you might want to do is you can get these very large Ziploc bags, 2.5 gallon, I think they're even 5 gallon. They've got some, I'm able to put a whole 5 gallon gas can in there. That's how big they get. So you could put the you put the bag in the Ziploc bag and it'll stay dust free, which I think is a really nice thing. Another thing you should do is keep your cell phone and your wallet on your nightstand every night when you go to bed. Now this is a behavioral change, and one of the things that I'm trying to get used to. I usually have my cell phone, but I typically put my wallet in my closet. I need to get used to putting my wallet on my nightstand. In addition to actually all my pocket items, the everyday carry stuff I have, should all go in my nightstand so that I can scoop it up, throw it in my home escape bag, and go. Ideally your home escape bag should have a shoulder strap, so you could just throw it over your shoulder or your neck or whatever, and you don't have to worry about trying to carry it, which I think would be important. If you have an infant or a toddler or a baby in your household, you're going to need to make a home escape bag for that child too. But this bag has to be stored with your bag. And everything they need diapers and clothing and food and milk and nipples and bottles and pacifiers and everything. I mean, if you have a baby, you know what they need. And this, you're going to need to update this every 3 months. You're going to have to rotate the food. You're going to have to update the sizes on the clothes and the diapers. I went through this, I made a fast pack for my kids when they were young, and it was quite the chore, quite honestly, to constantly keep that updated and stuff. But of course, you're going to need it. Now, you should be able to go out and buy this stuff, but it's very convenient to have it with you, to be able to say, okay, we can go to the hotel and I don't have to worry about anything except contacting insurance tomorrow because I've got enough money to pay for the hotel. I've got toiletries. We got something to wear. I've got enough stuff for the baby. We're fine for now. We're fine for the next 24 hours. And I've never had my house burned down, and I hopefully, knock on wood, I never will. But I would think that this would help alleviate some of the stress and emotional burden that I'd be feeling from having to lose everything if I knew, well, at least I had this. If any of the listeners has had their home burned down and would love to share what they went through and what worked and what didn't work, we'd love to hear that because experience speaks volumes. So, now that we've gone over the home escape kit, guess what your preparedness goal for the week is going to be? That's right, making a home escape kit or a home escape bag for everybody in your family. Now, again, this doesn't have to be top-of-the-line stuff. A pair of old sweats, a pair of old shoes, You can use the cheap dollar store stuff or the dollar bin stuff at the big box stores for even T-shirts or socks or toothpaste and toothbrush and stuff like that. Even the bag doesn't have to be, top of the line. It just has to be something that will hold all this stuff together, zips closed so you don't have to worry about losing things as you're running out of the house. And so put one together for each and every one of your family members or everybody that's in your home. Find a location for it where they sleep, under the bed. It's got to be something you can grab soon and immediately. Teach them that, this is part of the plan. You wake up, you smell fire, you start to yell fire, you grab your bag, and you go on with the rest of your plan. We have a podcast coming up that's going to cover, fire escape plans and stuff like that. And this ties into that as well as evacuation plans. This can serve as an extra bag in your evacuation plan. This is something you need to teach your family. You need to plan with it and make sure that everybody knows that this is what they're supposed to do. That's going to wrap it up for this first podcast of the new series of the Preparedness Podcast. I hope you enjoyed the information. I hope you take it to heart and do the goal. And we're going to be doing this every week. My goal is to put out a new podcast every week. Every week it's going to have a different goal. So if you're going to partake in the pattern of getting ready and using these as a method of how to get prepared and be better prepared, you're going to have to stay on board with this. And I'll be honest with you, there's a couple things here. There's some things in what we're going to be covering that I haven't done either. And my wife and I are using this as an opportunity to do it as well. For example, I don't have a home escape bag. It's something that I've been aware of, but for one reason or another, I never did it. And I don't know why, but the other day I was thinking, you know what, this is something that needs to be done. So while I'm doing the podcast on this, my wife has been making plans to get the bags and gather up some of these supplies. And we're going to be, compiling all our important documents and scanning them and stuff, which again is something that I have some of, but not everything. So we're taking this opportunity to do this ourselves. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you are interested in sponsoring or advertising on the podcast, or if you know somebody that is, please contact me at advertising@prepcast.info. And if you want to send me a comment or a question or a suggestion, please feel free to do so by sending me an email to rob@prepcast.info. Until next time, folks, enjoy life, stay safe.